Taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Honda Civic. The Civic does technically have two different infotainment screens that are available and two different cluster screens that are available. So this one is the Sport Touring Hybrid, which is the highest available trim. So that's why we've got this larger cluster screen. But if you're in a Civic with the smaller screen or with the smaller infotainment system, check down in the description of this video for those walkthroughs. As of the time of shooting this video, I don't have those ones available yet, but if they're available, you'll find them down below. But let's dive in and I'll show you everything that you need to know. First thing is that the steering wheel inside the ride might be heated, so you've got a button just along the bottom side of the steering wheel. It's also going to be manual telescoping, so down by your left knee, so you can release there, and then in, out, up and down to find that perfect position. Once you do, click it in order to lock it back into place. And you've got so many other things. So you've got your stick along the left-hand side in order to adjust your different high beams. I normally just recommend keeping yourself in the auto mode. And the big benefit there is that if you're in the auto mode, inside of the infotainment system here, there is also an auto high beam mode. So what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes the high beams are needed, it turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, it turns them off before turning them right back on again. But when you're in the auto mode, you can't permanently lock your high beams out. What you have to do is go into the bottom headlamp mode instead. When you're there, you can push away in order to be able to permanently lock your high beams out, pull towards you to turn them off. Like I said, you're just going to be in the auto mode the majority of the time. And then on the right-hand side there, you've also got your wipers. So just up one is going to be just a quick wipe, and then you could adjust out from there into different modes if you like to. If you're in the one down mode, so that's an intermittent mode, you could then use the rocker switch here in order to be able to adjust out how fast or slow that rain is hitting the windshield instead. You're then going to pull towards you in order to get the wiper fluid going. Now this car does have paddle shifters, so this is the hybrid. The regular gas engine does have paddles as well, but inside of the hybrid it works slightly different. So as you start to drive in the hybrid and you push down using the left pad, that's essentially going to control your deceleration. So it's essentially going to be a gray bar along the side here, and it's going to make you slow down faster. But when you're inside of the regular gas engine, the paddle shifters, the way that they work, they're essentially two ways. So you hit the minus button on the left-hand side, and that's essentially going to increase your RPM. So you can rely on engine braking, or with those higher RPMs, you can then hammer your foot on the accelerator pedal in order to speed up faster. But if you want to walk through on how traditional paddle shifters work, check down in the description of this video. From here, you've got a bunch of different switches, so you can change between all of your different songs this way. So if you have different presets set up inside of the infotainment system, you can change between your presets that way if you'd like to. You could also do a push and hold that way if you'd like, if you wanted to seek out instead. There's a volume rocker on the steering wheel, and then you can also change songs using your voice. 97.7 FM.
All right. Here's 97.7 FM.
So you can adjust it that way. And then there's also a little rocker dial here, and that's going to give you different options inside of that left screen. But I'll show you that one as we move closer to the screen, the cluster screen itself. And then you've got all of your different cruise control settings along the right-hand side. So this one toggles cruise control on. From there, once you start driving, you can then push down in order to set your speed. You could then push up or down in order to increase 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time, or push and hold up in order to increase 5 kilometers or 5 miles per hour at a time, or push and hold down to decrease 5 kilometers or 5 miles per hour at a time. So as an example, let's say if you set it at 37 kilometers an hour, push and hold up, it'll bring you to 40, 45, 50, etc. You then can cancel this way if you'd like to. You can hit the brake to cancel your speed, and then you can just push up in order to resume your previously set speed instead. From there, there's also going to be this lane centering system. So the Honda world, there's no full hands-free driving system. But when this one's enabled, as long as it recognizes the lane markings, it's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. It's a really, really good system, but you do have to keep your hands on the wheel, technically. So after about 10 seconds, you'll get a little message inside of the cluster letting you know that steering's required. So you do have to put your hands back on the steering wheel from there. There's also this one, which is a gap adjustment. So it's a distance indicator. So how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you? So there are 4 unique levels. I normally would recommend level 1 on residential streets, and then level 2 maybe level 1 on highways and interstates, just depending on your own personal comfort level. If you're using the adaptive cruise control system and it's snowing out, always be on at least level 4. Like adaptive cruise in wintertime, you just want to make sure you're leaving enough distance between you and the car in front of you. But it slows down beautifully. From here, once the cruise control system's turned on, if you push and hold that button as well, you hear there, and we've switched out to traditional cruise. So button push and hold again is going to be adaptive cruise. So 2 different cruises. So traditional cruise and adaptive. With traditional cruise control, if you have it set, let's say at 100 kilometers an hour, car in front of you slows down, yours will not brake. So you just have to be paying attention. But with the adaptive cruise control system turned on, if the vehicle recognizes somebody's in front of you, it's automatically going to slow you down. If they change lanes, pick up speed, it's going to automatically pick you back up to your previously set speed. But if you want a live demonstration on how the cruise control system actually works, check down in the description of this video for a little walkthrough instead. And then you've got this little rocker dial there, which is going to let you adjust out what's going on inside of the left side of that cluster screen. But so many different things available here. So again, with the one we'll start with the one on the left side first. So moving down, you've got the flexibility of adjusting a few things. You can customize the display, or you can hide certain things. So if we were to jump back for a second, as you start to move up and down, you see how there are all of these different things. So AM, FM, phone, etc. You've got the flexibility of being able to hide these things out. So let's say if you're never going to use certain things, or you want to show ones. Like let's say if you're never going to use AM, you're not going to use, I don't know, maybe Bluetooth audio or Android Auto, but you want to use Alexa, you could do that. And then if you hit back, you can also show or hide audio and the clock. So if you have that turned off, watch this. So we turn it off and we're just a naked cluster screen there instead. So a gauge display. But if you go back and if we toggle it back on again, so let's customize audio and let's go ahead and turn that back on again. You can see there, we've got that showing. So you can kind of adjust this out a tiny little bit, and then the screen along the right-hand side a little bit more in depth. So before we get there, because this is the hybrid, you've got your battery gauge. So that's how much juice the battery currently has. If you were in the regular gas version of the ride, that would look slightly different. And it's the same thing with this gauge. So this is your hybrid gauge versus your speedometer there. And then you've got your drive mode that you're in. So whether that's going to be Eco, Normal, Sport, and in some trim levels, an available individual mode as well. I love the Sport mode, but that's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. And then you've got all of your safety settings there, your current odometer along the right side, and then you've also got your fuel level along that right side as well. Your digital speed is there, and then which other safety systems do you versus don't you have turned on or off. It's kind of neat. Now, since this is the hybrid, so you can see here, well, you've got your park, so whether you're in park or reverse neutral drive, so it's whatever gear you're currently in, your outside temperature, but this is the hybrid gauge. I almost want you to think of this one like a traditional tachometer. So as you put your foot down, this is going to go up this way. So it's essentially how much power are you using? Very similar to an RPM gauge. But then as you go to brake, so you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, you're slowing down or braking, you'll notice that it goes green and drops down this way instead. So what it's doing is it's forcing charge, and it's going to charge the battery up by capturing that charge as you drive, or as you brake, I should say. So it's going to charge up the battery as you drive, but as you brake, regen braking to capture that energy as well. So it's pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it, but it's also really neat at the same time. And then you've got this little rocker in order to go between a few options. This top one is your power flow. So as you start to drive, you'll notice that this essentially is going to shoot power from the motor back to the battery here and charge up. If you're in the gas engine, this just wouldn't be there. From here dropping down, you've got your fuel economy. So you've got 2 different options there. So trip counter A versus trip counter B. If you push and hold the button here, that's going to let you reset. So you can either cancel or reset from there. And then you've got a few other options. Now, one thing about the fuel counter gauge, inside of the infotainment system, if you hop into the home screen, you've got your trip computer. And then you've got your menu options for different reset. So you can either reset it manually by doing what we just did there. You can have the counter automatically reset every time you turn the ignition off or every time you fully refuel the vehicle. The big benefit there is that if you're using the vehicle for business purposes, you can at least easily track your mileage that way instead. You've also got your average speed, how long you've been driving for, navigation. So if you had a route going, you wouldn't get full mapping cluster, but you'd at least get your turn-by-turn directions there. And then there's also the driver attention warning. So if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, if you have it enabled inside of the infotainment screen, eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. So that counter, essentially you've got 4 strikes, and then it's going to say you've got to pay attention. So it's either going to give you a steering wheel vibration or give you a noise. You can see if there are people in the vehicle. So as of right now, I'm the only one here. So my seatbelt is currently not on. You've got your oil life. You can reset that one through the infotainment screen if you're doing oil changes yourself. And then you've got some safety settings. So if you push the OK button there, you can toggle all of these things off. So your road departure mitigation. So that's the one where if you start to veer over, it's going to nudge you back into your lane. There's also going to be your blind spot system. So if you don't care about getting the blind spot system information there, so it's going to highlight in your side view mirror if somebody enters the blind spot, you can toggle that off. Low speed brake control. So if there's a potential collision, it can automatically brake for you. Do you want to have your sensors turned on or off? Collision braking and things like that. So all of these systems, I do recommend keeping them turned on, but if any of them drive you nuts, you've got the flexibility of toggling all of them off instead. There's also no content. And then if you wanted to, you could also change, look at this, so into miles or kilometers. So on that screen, you're just doing a push and hold there in order to be able to adjust it out. And then you can also customize the display a teeny little bit. So you've got different gauge displays that are available. So classic round versus a bar display instead. There's round minimal, so not quite as much there. And then you've also got a bar minimal instead. So slightly different looks. I'm personally just a fan of classic round, but that one's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. And then back from there, you can also hide or show certain things. So remember all these things that we were looking through? If you don't want certain ones to show up, so the grayed out ones have to be there, these other ones, you can choose whether or not they show up. So as you're back on the main screen, cycling through, it's which options are going to show up from there. It's going to be a matter of preference. So I know that is a heck of a lot of information. The only other one I'm going to point out is that down by your left knee, there's also a dimmer switch. So you can adjust the brightness of the screen this way instead if you'd like to. But that is everything that you need to know about the steering wheel buttons as well as the cluster inside of the Honda Civic. If you want a full walkthrough on the ride or a walkthrough on the infotainment system, you'll find that down in the description of this video.